believe it or not, Major General Sir Nigel Holmes, said in 1945, without Southampton we could not have done D-Day. But for one reason or another, this claim to history has been lost or misappropriated by other places. And these series of videos are looking at lesser known places around the town to show how it was significant, not only significant, but imperative for the success of D-Day. One of these places, one of the locations, as you can see in the picture, is the Civic Centre. Hermann Goering, the head of the Luftwaffe, is said to have stated that his Luftwaffe were going to cut off a slice of the Southampton Civic Centre because it looked like a bit of like a wedding cake. I've never been able to substantiate the claim, but if he'd known the significance, the true significance of the Civic Centre, he would have tried harder. The place was bombed a couple of times during the war. On one occasion, it killed a group of school children in an art class, and the Allied High Command were reluctant to support the choice of Southampton for the American Army, because the US Army, because they thought it was vulnerable to another attack. Even so, the US Army realized that the advantages of the port made it the only place that could accommodate an invasion armada. It had the long quays, which were finally completed in 1934, had deep water, and most important of all, it had the double high tide, which in peacetime meant that you could load and unload cruise liners at any time of the tide. But crucially, during a time of war, it meant that you could load the landing craft and the troop ships any time of the day, 24/7. That is unique in the whole of Great Britain. It is the only place along the south coast where you could load and unload 24/7, which is going to be of crucial significance in the support for the troops going ashore on the Normandy beaches. They wanted to know they could get supplies at any time of the day. They didn't want to wait for places like Dover or Portsmouth, where they were at the vagaries of the tide. If you went to Southampton, you knew you could get loaded or unloaded, and that's one of the important factors in why it was chosen as the invasion port. But what's the Civic Centre got to do with it? Well, to understand how this came about, there are a series of letters from the commander of the American Army to the Mayor Stranger. He was probably the only Southampton person in Southampton that realised the importance of this wing of the Civic Centre. These letters show how they negotiated the wing of the Civic Centre. A lot of people in Southampton, amateur historians, think that the Americans were limited to Hanwell Park or Hoglands Park, where they were Nissen huts. That's where they were first installed when they arrived in Southampton. But as you can see from this series of letters, they soon transferred to a wing of the Civic Centre, which was more appropriate. This is where they set up their control organisation. It was called BUCO, Build Up and Control Organisation, where they organised the inflow of soldiers from the United States according to Operation Bolero, and organised their billets, where they were going to sleep, their camps, transit camps, but also vessels and craft to travel to Normandy. The British equivalent was Southwestern House, did the same job, and these two officers liaised between each other. The story goes that there was a friction between the Americans, the United States Army, and the UK Army, the British Commonwealth Army, but that's not so. In fact, two of the American organisers or colonels in the Civic Centre were recommended for British honours. They weren't accepted, but that just goes to show you the importance they put on their relationship, the liaison between the two great armies. Let's get back to the Civic Centre though. So how was it that it was set up as the headquarters during Operation Overlord? Well, in order to find out, we have to look at the report made by the Commander-in-Chief of the Operation Neptune. That's the naval part of Overlord, and he was Admiral Ramsay. He had been in charge of the withdrawal from Dunkirk, the landings in Africa, the landings in Italy as well. But unfortunately, he died before the end of the war in a plane crash, and his report, released in the London Gazette, was only published in 1947. So the reasons for why Southampton became the hub or the nerve centre for Overlord only became clear many years after the Second World War was over. In fact, people in Southampton didn't even know the role of the port. According to Admiral Ramsay, the principal reasons for the choice were: one, they needed close and continuous control of the Navy, which could not be done from Southwick Park north of Portsdown Hill, many miles from the port. The control of the Navy, of the Armada, had to be close so they could issue orders almost directly. And from the wing of the Civic Centre, you could see the berths where most of the US ships were berthed. But also, he listed the priorities like delegating ships, tugs, loading, unloading, the repairing of ships as well. These were all dock facilities. They were all facilities that were needed by the Armada. And thirdly, he said it was a tempo. The tempo of the initial attack was all so crucial importance. It had to be kept at a high pitch. So the control of the Armada had to be close to the docks. And as I say, the British equivalent was Southwestern House, which was a stone's throw from the docks, and the US Army's headquarters was in the Civic Centre. But obviously the United States, I think, realised that this was going to be hard to swallow when the British realised the importance they'd played during the war. And unfortunately, it is not commemorated elsewhere. There's a plaque on the side of the one of the doors to the Civic Centre, the wing where the Americans were working, which commemorates their work, and it calls the 14th Major Port the headquarters, where orders were issued for 2.25 million men, 500,000 vehicles. And that really is the primary evidence to show the role that the port played, and especially Civic Centre. Of course, without the US Army, there would have been no second front. Without a second front, then there wouldn't have been a D-Day, and the liberation of Europe would have been much more problematic. And therefore, that is another reason I think that Southampton should be considered as a World Heritage Site. Thank you.